Welcome to the Stewart Squared podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Brent Bushnell, and potentially we'll have Nolan Bushnell come in as well. But before, I'll let my dad introduce Brent.
Yeah, so I remember you pitching me and Gilman, with a bunch of schematics, that you would go through this thing and it would be a lot of fun. That was not too bad.
You were the very first investor I ever pitched. And it was at the time for something called Versix. And Versix is sort of a funny brand that has sort of kicked around our family now for a number of years. But in that moment, it was this idea for these virtual rooms. And there'd be like a center console, and then there'd be rooms around the outside that were all like adventures, and if you've been to activate.games, a little like that, like there was little challenges off of sort of a core center area. And, this was, Stewart, I think 2006, maybe,
That's when we started. Alsop Partners started that year.
Is that true? It was a long time ago. And it was also like pre-escape rooms, like this was, escape rooms didn't really exist at the time. You would ultimately call this sort of like an escape room, but like, it's just wild to think about that, to be talking about
now. There was laser tag for a while, much earlier.
Laser tag had sort of an interesting thing that happened, is that it got really popular, and that because it was like cheap to deploy, and then as people got bored of it, it failed, and then it got another pop when all of a sudden tech got a little better, and you could like keep your score, and there was like different games to play and more targets, and it sort of had another pop. And I would say we're sort of back in the trough again.
And I remember, and this is going to kill me because I probably can't remember the name of it, but I remember flying from San Francisco to Boston, or vice versa, and stopping in Chicago to check out this on the pier, this business that allowed you to sit in a module and have fights. And I kept trying to remember that.
It was a VR thing in the 90s. It was like a Mech Warrior.
Little pods.
Yep.
Right, you see on the screen.
So VR had that moment in the 90s, and the tech was really rugged. Do you remember Disney Quest?
No,
Did you ever
don't remember Disney Quest.
Okay, so Disney Quest is an amazing story. Disney identifies the sort of big malls, like the potential to be a local anchor tenant. And like be a 50, 60, 100,000 square foot entertainment complex. And so they green light, I think like 8 or 9 of them, and they open one in Orlando and one in Chicago. Right. And the thing that was so amazing is it was like, there was an F&B component, there was a bunch of different kinds of entertainment, but they had like a ginormous 20-person pinball game with a huge wall when the big was really expensive and hard, and you could all be like at a console and all be doing something. They had another one where it was like 4 people, big projection room, 4 people in a raft, and the raft was on a motion base, and another one you were all working together in a pirate ship. But they also had really early VR. And if you think about what the Imagineers did to bring this to life, where you could, on a touchscreen, design your roller coaster and then go get a pod with VR that would move the pod. And I think it could do full 360. And so Unity didn't exist. Oculus didn't exist.
I know. How did people do this stuff?
None of these things. They had to build it all. And the thing that was so wild was, I still believe the Disney Quest premise is correct, and that thing needs to exist. It needs to exist even more today than it did back then. You could do it for cheaper now today. You wouldn't have to build every single one of the stacks, And the thing that really broke Disney Quest was having to do all of that stuff. The fundamental requirement would be that the content would change, right? That the software would update, and they were enough digital to be able to do that, but you needed modern infrastructure to be able to do it in any sort of cost-effective way.
And that would be fun,
Yeah.
I'll keep going, Stewart, if you want to.
Yeah, well, so because me and my dad were talking before we started recording, and we see this dream park thing, because we noticed on your and it seems like you're already headed in that direction of essentially establishing something like a Disney Quest.
what you guys, I want to build the biggest theme park on earth.
Nice.
Truly, full stop. And the thing that happened is mixed reality is amazing. And Oculus, Meta, quietly or not quietly, like just, spent $1 gajillion, for a decade, and the device that we have is now like Gen 10, and it is, we're getting them for $150, $200, and it does pass through mixed reality in color. This is stupidly amazing. And it's so much better than VR, right? Because I like VR. You can do things you can't do in mixed reality, like play with scale, right? I could shrink you down, I could scale you up. That's really cool. But for almost every other use case, mixed reality is better. And VR has this fundamental Achilles heel, which is if you move the camera and your body doesn't feel movement, most people get nauseated. So what games, what experiences don't move the camera? A freaking driving game, shooting game, sports game, it's like they all freaking move the camera. And so all of the innovations in VR had to come up with a new locomotion.
And so, and you're saying that this is here right now, that we have mixed reality at the moment with new devices that Meta is going to, and so he's going to go find it and show us here.
Yeah. And we were looking at the website for
Dream Park.
Dream Park immersive. And I have to admit, I get a little confused with Dreamscape immersive, but
this is the Meta Quest 3
without a band,
all in one unit. Yeah, we tear out the band. I can talk about that. But when I think about even what we had to go through in 2017 to do VR, I needed a $2,000 computer mounted in truss, thousands of dollars of truss, with cables of confusion to a $2,000 headset with two devices that were constantly going out of sync, and those things were breaking. And so it's like, and all of that for 5 feet of immersion with the limitations of VR and moving the camera and all that stuff.
And now, what does mixed reality offer us now?
Well, when you move your body, you can move the camera, right? And so at our dream park, you can free roam in 20,000 square feet. You hold the camera to your face like a binoculars, and then you wander around, and you step over lava, and you can reach up and break blocks and collect coins, and it's a whole dynamic world. And you know what? We're in an empty freaking room. Completely empty.
Interesting.
Like, we signed the deal with the landlord on Friday, and we were open on Saturday. Stewart, I got a question. What is the square foot? What does it cost per square foot to open a Meow Wolf?
What? Say that again.
What does it cost per square foot to open a Meow Wolf?
This has been our advantage and our issue.
Yeah.
The first one in Santa Fe.
Yep.
We think we spent like a total of $2.5 million to open that exhibit.
Wow.
And that's like, we've never been able to reproduce that. So now I spend somewhere between 60 and 120 million, depending how big it is.
120 million for, call it 80,000 square feet, probably, right?
It's a little bigger.
100,000?
The big ones, the 120 are definitely up in the 50,000.
So we're talking like $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah, it's very expensive. And it's our issue. And that's why I say it's our issue.
Well, so I bring it up only because we can open a dream park for $1 a square foot. Truly. And in 4 hours. And the thing that's been so amazing is we've done it so far on the public walking mall, the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, the world's biggest music festival, Electric Daisy Carnival in Vegas Motor Speedway, LA County Fair, a big empty warehouse in Seattle. We're about to open the mall common areas in a mall in Long Island, like an old, cafeteria in Austin. It doesn't matter. We're about to do, city parks. We could just do it in all of these different places. It really blows my mind, frankly.
So then, I'll obviously ask these questions because of my interest, but how much do people pay and how long does they stay engaged? And, what are the basic metrics for showing up and punching blocks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that is just one piece of content. So another one in our Seattle location is you get on an actual adult big wheel, and I'll show you what that, you get on an actual adult big wheel, and in the headset, you see coins to collect or big inflatable barriers to avoid.
Oh, wait. So it's mixing in your, okay, got it. Yeah.
Right. And so then what you're seeing in the headset is effectively your own version of Mario Kart, but it's first person point of view. And so the invitation is, think about every game with some sort of embodiment where you're controlling some character, and now make yourself that character, right? Like you can be the person, you can be the character and do it from a first person point of view. And frankly, every soccer field and every basketball court is a format, right? And they're in every town in America. And so content made for that size is super scalable, And so we are at the absolute precipice of this being absolutely ginormous.
Right. So you have a development system, fairly lightweight from the way you're talking about, but that means you can turn one of these things on or turn it over in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
And so the question that I would have asked your dad, but I'll ask you, is like, is you doing this stuff genetic? Given he started Atari and Chuck E. Cheese, it's like,
it's super funny because I've got a lot of siblings, so I got 7 siblings.
Wow.
3 girls, 5 boys, and Dad was very specific with us. He was like, literally, you guys, I'm going to give you no money. You're going to do it all on your own. And that's the deal. And he was very serious about that. And so as a result, we were all like, well, we don't need you for anything, like we're going to do it on our own. And so, for a lot of us, I went into my first company was website hosting and web design. I had a bank vault servers and downtown. And I was doing that for insurance and all this other stuff. And it wasn't until I found that I met my ultimate co-founder for 2-Bit, and we started making interactive art because we're engineers, and the art turned into games. And I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing? So much about this, as a family, we love games. We played board games, all growing up, and tons of different kinds of games. And then I was like, man, I love this. I know a ton about it. What am I doing? Yeah.
For the history, how old were you when you did intersect with an Atari, if at all? Were you going over to the office?
No, the memories that I have, one sort of hazy memory of going to an opening for a huge Chuck E. Cheese. But really the memories that I have were going to my dad's incubator, Catalyst.
Oh.
And he made,
what was that called?
One of the world's first incubators. And it was, his idea was, this was after after Atari and after Chuck E. Cheese. But the idea was to be able to fund, a couple of engineers with keys. And, if people had an idea, he could give them a set of keys to their office, and then they'd have all the back office, everything else done. They just needed to go and nerd out. And the fun story from that is one of the companies that came out of that was called ETAC, and it was a dead reckoning mapping system for cars. It had a little green screen in your car, and there were sensors on the wheels. And the engineers that were working on that were working out of this building, Catalyst, and Catalyst had in the cafeteria an asteroids game. And so when the engineers decided that they wanted to represent the car on the map, on the screen in the car, they were like, how do we represent the car? And they were like, well, let's just use the asteroid ship, in the cafeteria. And literally to this day, just about every mapping solution that you might use still uses the asteroid ship to record the car.
Well, there you go.
So I remember going to that place a lot because it was always weird. There was always tons of stuff going on.
Yeah. So, let's try to sync it up here, because you pitched us in 2006, but 2-Bit Circus kind of evolved from that.
Yeah, 2-Bit Circus evolved out of that. We really, were an agency making, immersive attractions for brands before experiential was really a term. We were about nerds with, who could weld and, do electronics and, so we could sort of build whatever they wanted. We made a cloud that rained tequila for the Mexican Board of Tourism. So some fun stuff. And then we were like, the tough thing about agency work is you're always hustling for the next gig, and none of the stuff that you just did, you can use, And so we threw away that freaking cloud that rained tequila because the activation was over, and it was just so depressing because it was so freaking cool. But it was also like, man, why? How could we be thrown? And that was when we started to really try to make our own stuff. And so we built first an event, a big traveling carnival, to be able to showcase the stuff that we made for all these brands. And then finally a physical location, one in downtown LA. And then we moved it to the West Side. So we're in Santa Monica. And it was actually really critical in incubating Dream Park. 2-Bit has gone on to incubate about 10 companies.
Is that right?
An actual robot bartender. That's incredible. We 2-Bit internally tried to make 3, Guillermo del Toro, the first, second, and third. But they were just such a nightmare. We ultimately incubated a company that did a much better job.
So that's really interesting that you essentially started as an agency creating experiential experiences for different brands and stuff like that. And you ran into the same problem that a lot of companies who do software, which is that you basically build out for your clients, and you can't build out internally anything interesting on the product side.
Yeah, you don't really have time. You're hustling on all the gigs.
Yeah. And so you essentially started to create products, and that's how 2-Bit Circus came out. And so what is that for creating products? Like, what kind of products did you guys build?
Well, it was sort of lumpier than that, Stewart, because we were for a little while just trying to eke out time in our own stuff. And so as we took on branded work, we tried to run 3 filters. Is this a project that we want to learn about? Like the time and effort we're going to put in, we're going to be learning about something we care about otherwise. And like VR was a perfect one. We did a whole huge project for Dave & Buster's in the early days of VR, and it trained us on the latest and greatest of VR. Nobody knew about VR. Anybody who was going to be hired to this project was going to be learning about it, so it might as well be us. Second, and so it was sort of basically like paid R&D. Our second filter was, are we 2-Bit Circus a partner with this brand, or are we like some paid, vendor that won't be recognized? And so that was like basically paid marketing. And then the third filter was, well, is it ridiculously high margin? To buy the other 2 if you have. But that filter, as we sort of got more in demand, was wonderful because we could sort of apply that filter across, for projects, and that would help to figure out what we would do. What we would take on. And so we would slowly invest into our own things. The robot bartender was a funny example. We tried to pitch that to brands multiple times, and we had all these things we wanted to make, and they'd be like, hey, let's do a thing. And we'd be like, hey, what about a robot bartender? And they would be like, no. But each time you pitch it, it would get better. It would get more complete. And so a lot of renderings for the stuff that ultimately became 2-Bit's traveling carnival and our permanent facility were things we tried to pitch to brands for ages.
So when I was sticking up, I was trying to figure out. So Stewart was born in 1980. Assume you were born in
1985.
Right?
Yeah, I was born in. I can't believe it. I was born in the 70s. I was born in the 70s.
Yeah. But I'm trying to remember what was going on. At the time you were growing up, the very early part of when you're growing up.
The thing that was really neat for us, my age band was, as tech got great, our video games, in the window in which I had tons of time, elementary school, middle school, high school, some high school, to play video games, they went from 8-bit to, the real time rendering as close to the video fidelity as you can get. It was like and King's Quest. Remember the old Sierra games? If you watched King's Quest from 1 to 5, that was just like the sweet spot of my growing up. And literally King's Quest 1 was literally 8 colors, and King's Quest 5 was 64,000.
Yeah. This is so cool because it gets into what we've been talking a lot about, which is essentially all these technologies are now coming to a head. And for the past, I grew up, a little bit later than you. as my dad would bring home games like this. Civilization 2 was the big game that I would play. And so in the gaming in the 1980s and the 1990s, and then we started to connect the games together with networked computing. And now here we are, we have AI coming into the picture. And the whole reason AI is coming into the picture is because of this gaming, is because of these 3D architectures that essentially were for pixels. Finding the right pixels got transformed into number crunching words, basically. And now it's starting to affect, again, both me and my dad got into this video from NVIDIA called Physical AI, which basically they're taking these LLMs and they're then creating simulations for robots so that they can train the robots and put 10,000 hours of training into 2 hours of training based on visualizations from these LLMs. So it's all, yeah. And we, as you can probably tell by now, we go from point to point. We go into the history, go into the future. We go into all these different places. So where are you seeing all of this going in terms of where we're headed into the future with like this crazy technology, what you guys are doing with mixed reality? Where is this all going?
I mean, the thing that I get the most excited about is applying all these great immersive experiences to training and therapy and fitness and learning and all these great outcomes. And you know, our current school system, everybody knows, broken for a million reasons.
Yep.
You know, but the huge one is personalization. And if you can personalize the learning experience directly to the user in a way that is delivered without boredom or frustration, you know, you're in that flow state, the way that only a video game can really, you know, or often not only, but very predictably a video game can do, you know, and so the thing that gets so cool is the memory will be retained longer, right? The closer that, the more immersive it is, the more it's like reality, the more the information will be permanent, you know, the more emotion it's involved, the longer term storage it will be, you know, like there's all these ways that we could make sure that you were going to do it. I mean, my little brother, you know, in consummate nerd form, he was putting on weights on his arms and his weight, you know, in order to do Beat Saber, you know, in a way, you know, which is like, and I go back to, you know, people will play a game of soccer with a broken foot. Right? Like their head is so in the game, they don't even notice the pain of a broken bone, you know, and who will get on a treadmill and know that, and, you know, and not get off with a broken foot, you know, it's like but you know, it's like when your head's in the game, you'll just do anything. And I think that's a powerful future.
I'm getting a vision of essentially Diamond Age. Well, one Neil Stevenson book called Diamond Age has this thing. Yeah. And there's like this book that essentially it's like a book, an AI book that personalizes the learning experience. And then the other relevant one is Ender's Game as well. Ender's Game seems like they have something directly. And we're headed, how far away are we from a future where, because you guys are working on the vision aspect, we've now got LLMs that can do the linguistic aspect. And then we've got robots and high performance computing that are going to make this, we're probably like a few years away, right?
Well, you know who I would look to is, have you guys done any immersive theater? You know,
yes.
where it's not, you're not like theater in a seat looking at a stage. You are, there's actors all around you and themed environments and all that. One of the things that has always been a challenge with immersive theater is you have all these actors, you know, and the best thing is the one-on-one experience with the actor. But now that we have all these AI avatars, you could do immersive theater in a really scalable way. And so I think, you know, I want to see some AI avatar experts team up with some immersive theater people, where the immersive theater people are like, amazing, the limits have been removed. I can now do all the things I imagined, you know, and it can economically pencil. And I just think there's just been so much fun exploration in the world of immersive theater. And I've had some really moving experiences. You know, I've forgotten 1,000 movies and traditional theater, and there is immersive theater that is just tattooed on my brain.
Is Sleep No More an example of that?
Yeah, Sleep No More is a perfect example.
Yeah. And have you seen anything else that really?
You know, I really loved Queen of the Night. Was a dinner. It was like a dinner and a show thing, in New York for a while. But like, I mean, I'll never forget the dinner. It was like, it came out and the food was like a pig on a spit, and you didn't even have utensils, like lobsters that came out in ginormous bird cages, and they put them on the table. It was like it was barbaric, and then at a certain point when they went to clean it all up, these people in helmets and huge smocks came out with these ginormous bins, and it was like violent the way that they cleared the room. I mean, the whole thing, it was just, I mean, the hair was standing on the back of your neck at times, and then there was down the middle circus thing, and I was single at the time, and somebody walked around and was like, "Hey, anybody single here?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I am," and somebody else was too, and they freaking took us under the stairs in this room, me with like this girl and these other actors, and it was a room with paper everywhere and candles, and I mean, it was just it was next level. It was next level.
Wow.
So you are an actor.
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I play.
I listen to you and I go, you really get charged up when you're talking about, in a performance.
Oh man. I mean, I love immersive entertainment so much. I mean, really, it's like my work and my play have completely fused.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, Dad, how has it been? Because we talk a lot on the show about the history of how my dad got into this. And so he was first writing for a publication in the 1980s, early 1980s, and then essentially created Agenda and created all these conferences and stuff like that. Dad, what is it like were people talking in the 1980s and the 1990s about what we've just been talking about reality disturbance, about this shift once computation sort of happens? Can you track what was happening back then?
So just so you know, Brent, I'm raising another venture partnership.
Oh, great.
TK Media Tech Ventures.
Excellent.
And our thesis is that, the next big revolution in media will be when reality and digital life merge, so that it's very hard to tell which side you're on. This goes over a lot of people's heads, but I wouldn't expect it would go over yours. But so what was your question, Stewart?
So basically, what was it like in the 80s and the 90s? Were people talking about this happening?
So I was talking to Peter Zandan, a friend of mine who was doing data analysis in the 1980s. When I started Agenda in 1987, we wanted to poll people in real time about their reaction to what people were saying on stage. So we actually had a little button with a wire on it.
Cool.
I went to the stage. There were 400 people, so there's 400 wires. 400
wires. Dude, anytime you get above 100 things, it's just so hard.
It's so hard. But it gave us the ability to do a real-time sentiment analysis. And so it was like people were blown away by that. But this is 1987. So it's like that was really the state of play, even though it was a conference where everybody showed up at the same place. But the only way we could facilitate that. So it's like in that context.
How many buttons on the wires?
Just 2 buttons.
2 buttons.
So it's a yes, no.
I built this thing. It's 4 arcade buttons. Now this is wireless, and interestingly, the wireless aspect is a real challenge because I can get reliably 25 of them, and in theory there are routers that'll go to 100, but physics is really in the way.
Wait, what did you build that for?
An interactive variety game show.
Interesting.
And so it's for up to 250 people. Because I can do the 25 boxes, 10 people to a box. And then it's a whole variety show. So it's hosted, and up on the screen is on a big projector is this game engine with trivia and sorting and 25 player sort of maze game and button smash and all sorts of different games. I've been working on this interactive game show in some form since about 2006.
Wow. Okay. Wait. So since 2006, you've been thinking about these things. Now you're working in mixed reality. And what I just got back from what you said and what my dad said is that essentially we're entering a fantasy world, and that fantasy world is about to be in infinite way in an infinite universes.
Yeah,
They will they all be customized. Yeah.
For anybody creative, we are in just
Yeah.
absolute the Renaissance times, you know,
Yeah.
because you have Unity and you know, these freaking, you know, boards are custom printed circuit boards from China at like
Wait.
$20 a board.
Wait,
you
wait,
know,
wait.
low quantity with a freaking microcontroller attached. I mean, it's crazy.
Can you
And
go
so-
into how you got that custom board? That sounds really interesting.
Open source software that you can lay out the circuit board, and you both
Wow.
lay out the electrical diagram, like what are the components involved, where do the wires go, and then you also lay out the physicality. I had this physical box. I need the board to be a certain size with standoffs in certain places, you know, and so you can do this. Open source software allows you to do both those things, and then you also attach the part number for a Chinese company, JLC PCB. They have all their part numbers for all their things associated. You load those into the open source software too. So you can literally hit export, upload it to their website. They will charge you per board and a tiny little shipping fee, and it will be in your freaking mail in like under a month. It is bananas.
What's
So
the
you
open
didn't have to
source?
go to China for that.
What's that?
You didn't have to go to China for that.
Sometimes that's from China.
So what's the open source software called?
God, I knew you were going to ask that. Hold on. But I will get it.
I'm putting it in my notes here, and I'll ask you later.
Yeah. Okay. But to properly represent them, so fun. But it really KiCad.
KiCad. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you didn't have to go to China to do that. You're in your imaginative space. You put this. You've
laid out
put it all together.
I did the initial sort of architecture and design, and then got a much better electrical engineer than me. And they finished the design, we uploaded it to JLC, iterated that process a few times as we figured, you know, this has got multicolor LEDs on it and a bunch of other stuff, USB charging and a power button. And then once that was all working, we were off to the races, and we had a little platform, and then it was strictly a software thing.
Okay, and there's the thought I interrupted you with about the Renaissance thing, but now I've got further up.
That's like one example. This is the other example, right? You know, I mean, this thing and being able to, you know, I mean, we talked about the total sufferfest it was to do VR, you know, 8 years ago. Now you can walk infinitely, you know, with this thing and build the content in Unity and you know, have just all the pipeline connect and you'd like to have physical objects triggered in the environment, you know, as a result of your actions. Like, great, there's a whole DMX solution that will interface with your Unity app. You know, I mean, it's like, it's just so good, also good, easy.
A lot of follow-up questions there. Where do you see, as we go into the future of this, where do you see software playing a role, and where do you see hardware playing a role? And that reminded me of the other question, which is the hardware. How much are you using Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and all those things, or do you always go custom?
You know, I think Arduinos and Pis and stuff are wonderful for prototyping. And sometimes prototypes last a lot longer than you think.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's something still call a prototype, but for the most part, the second we're going to production, it'll go custom.
Interesting.
Because it's also just so easy, you know, and these ESP32s are a freaking $1 or $2, you know, and you know, in any kind of quantity, you know, and so it's like it's just crazy, you know, how different it gets. And so and then I forget the first part of your question.
So where does the software end and where does the hardware begin? What's the relationship between software and hardware? So
I really feel like the closer we can get this stuff to real life, you know, and because real life's awesome, it's super high res, it's you know, familiar, we know how to interact with the world, we've been doing it your whole life, and so all these other interfaces that we created are, you know, have to be learned, and so you know, they are, and you know, keyboard and mouse is actually really effective input technology, but you know, conversation is more natural, right? More known. My little daughter at 2
Yeah.
could do can do the conversational stuff.
And that's where it's all moving, is
well,
conversational.
so real life has terrible game mechanics.
Yeah. I love it.
So it's
Yeah.
super high res and really great for a lot of reasons, familiar and all those things, but it has terrible game mechanics and not necessarily goals. But
Yeah.
like if you have a learning objective or a fitness objective or a entertainment objective, you can start to the closer that we can get the delivery of what will scaffold you up to that learning objective, what will scaffold you up to that fitness objective, the closer we can get it to real life and be super fun and engaging and you want to do it and you can't wait to do it. That's the best. That's the best case. Imagine kids so engaged in their learning journey that they finish an entire 4 years of college or 4 years of high school in a year, or they're so, you are so motivated to be healthy, that you just can't help but shed pounds, in your super fun, espionage game. And in fact, I think there's a really great example. There's a Korean drama soap opera that I'm not recommending because it's so slow, but it's called Memories of Alhambra, and it's on Netflix, and it's like 9 parts soap opera and 1 part ridiculously awesome sci-fi. And the ridiculously awesome sci-fi part, I'll condense the entire season into this next statement. We're right at the moment where we have contact lens displays.
Oh, man.
And there is only really one experience that exists. And this kid has built this experience overlaid on the streets of Alhambra. And this guy goes and experiences it. And in order to figure out what to do, he goes to an actual real church. And in the church, in his contact lenses, is this ethereal person who is telling him the thing that he's got to go do. And then he goes across town to the actual antique dealer. And in the back, amazingly, through the ceiling, the super sword comes down and he gets the super sword. And then he goes from there into the town square, the actual real town square with the fountain and everything. And that's where the bad guy with the scimitar is. And he gets into the battle with the bad guy. That's amazing. Here are these really legitimately beautiful built environment things, a church, Disney spent a gajillion dollars to recreate a church or to recreate a downtown. Let's just use the actual downtown. It's great and there, already.
Yeah. So just to be topical, I'm sure you noticed Meta's announcements last week.
So exciting. They just continue to do cool stuff. And I think what you want about Facebook and all of the deterioration of society because of social media and all that stuff. And that thing can coexist with the incredible innovations that they are rotting with the
right. So this new Ray-Ban, which is not $300 but $800
gajillion,
have the thing but the reactions people have been incredible. The professional reviewers.
I think it's cool to put these sorts of wearable displays into categories because the immersive magic is sort of related to the category, and those Ray-Bans are really like a heads-up display. Imagine like a notification that you've got mail or whether you should turn left or right at the next intersection. These are things like if you were looking at your Warcraft game, the stuff that's all around the outside, as you look down on the world. But I'm not going to like put a dragon standing on your table, in that display, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? That level of augmented reality. This level of augmented mixed reality, you can put a dragon on the table, and in fact, it's very convincing. And this is the part that's also super critical is the Magic Leap and the HoloLens both had a lens you were looking through, but in theory still put the dragon on the table. But your brain is very decisive about the fact screen here and reality's over there, and I know the difference. And it's this like paradoxical hardship to really, really convince the brain that that's fused. But when you put on mixed reality, pass-through video, you see the world, and you're all of a sudden it's like a slightly lower res world than you're used to. But you're just like your body updates. You're like, okay, this is the world now. And then when you augment that, your brain is really convinced. And it's
Interesting. So what are all the categories then? You said the dragon on the standing table, and I'm not too familiar with the announcement. I didn't go into details on that.
Yeah, think like three versions. Heads up display. That's the sort of your directional, and that you can do in augmented reality. There's also augmented reality like HoloLens and Magic Leap, where it was like you can still do the dragon, but so you're looking through glass, that has a lens on it of some kind, and but you could still do some level of positioning of stuff, and then full-blown pass-through video. There's no lens here that I'm looking through. The world is getting recreated from all these cameras.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it.
Created in the glass for me, and so
were you aware of
big differences?
Dad, were you aware of all those categorizations?
I think one of the things that I'm fascinated and probably was focus on now is Meowwolf is a community of artists.
What is?
Meowwolf.
Oh, I love that.
Community of artists. The artists are people that paint, who write stories, who weld metal pieces. You go into the factory here in Santa Fe. It's like, holy fuck, what are these people doing?
So cool.
And these people do not take easily to understanding, much less embracing technology. Either as a tool for their own production, but also kind of conceptually, they really want you to touch and feel what they've got.
I mean, physicality is amazing. I don't want to take away from that. I love physical stuff, and you can do, these real live buttons are better than any button I can ever virtually give you, by a mile. And the games change as a result, and so I do, Stewart, really appreciate that artistry so much. I love it.
And as a part of 2-Bit Circus, you guys were doing a lot of that, right?
Oh, so much. Are you kidding? I missed my whole shop. We had such a cool workshop.
Wait, what was going on in the workshop? Like, what were some of the things?
Well, we were building all that stuff. I mean, we had woodworking, metalworking, electrical. We were doing all of our own fab.
Wow.
It was really, we had multiple workshops all over downtown.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's my belief when I try to look forward that we have to get to a crossover where anybody who's not a technologist is comfortable with the technology.
Yeah, and I would say
creative process can embrace it. Yeah,
we're close there. Unity, and particularly now, I think Stewart Jr., where you were going, is the tech is not just better, but AIs can help you on the development side. My brother, is making escape room games, but is, conversationally together with AI, taking bits and putting them into the game in the right place. You describe the algorithm or outcome you want, and as long as you know where to put it, you're off to the races.
That's the crazy thing with LLMs, is that most people think of them as the sort of killer robot that's going to take away all our jobs, when in reality it's just the best tutor that we've ever had.
Best tutor, best sidekick, best, imagine being able to 10x your productivity, I mean, it's like, whoa.
In that world, I'm now seeing it much clearer based on this interview, that world that the best personal tutor mixed with all these mixed reality, alternative, augmented reality, VR, like fully immersive into our visual sphere, like we're entering the Renaissance again, but it will be a digital Renaissance. It's not going to be like, there is going to be a workshop like you have, but that workshop, that not everybody's going to have that. A lot of it's
apply all the stuff that we just talked about now to physical production, right? So the PCB that I was able to get from China at cheap, the very predictable hole pattern that was cut by both a laser cutter for the top piece and a mill for the bottom piece, were both robots cutting stuff for me, and so the ability, and so lay that model out, the same open source layout program to be able to, that I used to be, a different open source program you could use instead of laying out the PCB to control your robot. And I think that makes the physics, I think the way that manufacturing returns to America is the tools are freaking easy, and it's like everybody can do it now, and it's like you just need to have the idea and you can
Way the tools are easy. Can you as in like a CNC machine gets
a
easier
CNC machine controlling. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just so you know, one of my experiences going forward, this won't be part of my life, but I invested in 2 space companies, and the latter one is called Ursa Major, which is in Colorado, and they produce high-performance rocket engines.
This is Dad.
For hypersonics, engines that can fly at 5.4 Mach 5.4.
Do you want to come on this thing? Are you in a place that you could do that? A link?
We could reschedule.
I'm sending it to you right now.
So no. Special guest, surprise guest.
Special surprise guest.
So just to tap that off,
sorry, Stewart,
they make these high-performance rocket engines, and 80% of it is 3D printed. So of course,
it's 3D printed. That's so cool.
Yeah. We still have to use machining for some of the finer points, but and this is a rocket engine that flies missiles at 5.4 Mach 5.4.
And they can do that out of titanium and
yeah,
I mean
copper, all of these materials. That's been a real eye opener for me, and my partner Gilman has taken over that board seat because it got away from me.
But that's a perfect example, Stewart. There's a whole new category. There's a whole companies that exist because this fabrication technology has gotten so powerful, and so on the digital modeling side, all the way through to the physical production side, that pipeline is getting easier, and people can know less and less about what it takes to actually do that 10 years ago or currently, and that I think is going to be a real, it'll help Stewart with with that renaissance,
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to mention, does your dad know he has to open Riverside and then?
Yeah, I texted him both of those things.
Took me a while to figure it out. Yeah. I'm not as old as he is. I call myself an OOPY, old urban professional.
An OOPY?
OOPY. Yeah. I try to buy all the gadgets, right? And then I'll buy one of these Meta Ray-Ban things with the color screen just to be able to play with it. But I know a lot of people my age who checked out a while ago, and they go like, "What?"
I mean, it's changing fast.
Yeah.
And this was the craziest thing growing up with you as my father, Dad, is that it's I've had the reverse experience to a lot of people my age, which is usually it's the kids teaching the parents about technology, but it's always been you teaching me. And I think LLMs are the first time where I might have a head start on it.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, we're kind of run out of steam, and if Dad gets on, I don't want to blow him off, but I'd be willing to do this again.
Maybe we do it again. Yeah,
we should.
I think that's probably a smart way to do that. I think
this is cool.
This has been a great run, you guys.
Check with you. You live in LA.
It's funny. I lived in LA for 20 years, and then wanted to raise the kids in nature, and we moved up to Seattle, and so been in Seattle. 2021. I still love Los Angeles. The song Hotel California, it's got to be about Los Angeles. It's like you can get out, but you can never leave. I'm just But
there is a Hotel California in Los Angeles, so I'm
there is. Yeah. Well, and it really it's addicting. Addictive. All that and environment. Hey, Dad.
Hey, you made it in.
I'm sorry, I'm tawdry.
Well, what we were thinking? We've been doing this for an hour. What if this is the ultimate preview for us doing this again? And this for a part 2.
Dad plus son plus son. And we'll go down a whole different path because we were basically interrogating Brent.
I got you guys. I have to highlight his laboratory behind him.
It's pretty cool.
Amazing stuff going on, and to be immersively in that room with him, it's like everything is within an arm's reach in full 360 around him. It's incredible.
So that's just private.
yeah. It's
That's
just I've
sounds
got,
like something people would pay admission for.
Yeah.
it should be, but the idea is, I've got electronic meters and power supplies and Arduinos and
Wow.
LEDs, and I've even got a part that I had a deep dive on pneumatics for a while, so I've got
Wow.
distance and power. So the whole
He
idea
did.
is build. I like projects. I like to build little gadgets.
You did. I got to say, Dad, he did an entire sort of art. He had an art phase, building big physical art. Out of like, stoplights and it was
Wow.
really quite cool.
Yeah, I've actually got one up here right now that's kind of fun.
It's a little hard to see. It's a little washed out. Yeah, it's a little bright.
It's actually an arrow.
Oh,
Got this
wow.
guy.
Let's do that.
Got a red light here.
Oh, yeah, cool. You got one too.
Yeah, but that's for the chicken. It's a chicken baster red light therapy type of thing.
Oh, cool.
Right.
Well, guys, let's definitely do this again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'll reach out in the next few days to reschedule.
Okay.
Yeah. Figured out. Okay. Well, we'll see you again in a couple weeks. We hope.